Golden rule number 1, practice the behavior you would like to see in others. And when I say practice the behavior, we know the old golden rule, which is do unto others, but practicing the behaviors that we would like to see in others. And perhaps the bottom line on this golden rule is, does it work for you? Because all we have to do is examine our own personal lives, families, work, and any time that you were mistreated by a boss or another human being, or you were unappreciated, you can see how little that did to motivate you. And why is because when somebody comes walking in, it's your boss, and says, I need this done, there's a big difference between that and when they walk in and they say, how are you doing? Looks like you had a tough week. And they're checking out. I say, well, and they see you as a human being. When we're seen as human beings, the tasks just come naturally for us. And I can say for probably every adult that I've known in my life that there's not a single one out there that would say, gee, my test scores defined me as a human being. But I think kids are being raised in a world today that they believe that their value is based on this particular test score. And part of that is going to become more and more difficult on us if we're not careful of what that does to us and how that may also play out in our own aggression. And you even look at those little things that we do in how we treat each other in relationships. For instance, think of your loved ones. And I was with a couple not long ago, and we're just getting into a car, and somebody says to the other, hurry up, honey. And she says, well, I guess I could move at light speed. And you could hear this little bit of aggression in your voice. And when I say practice the behavior you'd like to see in others, if those things work for you or they motivate you, then you're probably a disturbed human being, but I don't think they motivate any of us. And part of it is also we get older and our aggression gets a little bit more sneaky. But also think of this maybe more. We're so driven by money in our country in a capitalistic sense, because I read a research piece about waitresses, and they were asked, if given the opportunity to choose, would you rather have a customer that gave you a lower paying tip but treated you with decency and respect, or would you rather have a customer who treated you with disrespect and was rude and cruel to you, but you got a higher tip? And 90% of all the waitresses said, I would take the lower tip and being treated with respect. And one of the things I liked about that study is that it really indicates that you can't put a monetary amount on saying, I have the right to abuse you, no matter how much you pay for a service. These people are out there working in the trenches. They say, I'd much rather take less money if I could be treated with some kind of respect. And so within this section, practice the behaviors you would like to see in others. So a couple of things we need to pay attention to. First, avoid public humiliation. It's important that we do that. Avoid losing our temper and raising our voice. Avoid sarcasm, rhetorical questions, that sneaky aggression that we get when we become adults. And also, more importantly also, is think in a larger scheme too, because if you want a warm environment to work in, then in order to create one, we have to treat everyone with the same respect that we'd like to be treated ourselves. And Eleanor Roosevelt said a wonderful thing, and she said, it is not fair to ask of others what we are not willing to do ourselves. So we need to practice the behaviors we'd like to see in others. What I want to go over is the 5 golden rules for staying connected to children. And the 5 golden rules: practice the behavior you'd like to see in others. And we always talk about the do unto others, but the way I like to frame that is I say, practice the behavior you would like to see in others. Second one is become a guide, not a dictator. You know those people that motivate with fear, and those that really do motivate with collaboration. Switch from problem focus to solution focus. You'll notice the most miserable people who work with children are so focused on the problem that they can never get to the solution. Join the scientists, not the victimists. And what I mean by that is that scientists and victimists are very much similar in that they both gather information. You ever notice that? But scientists, they gather information to solve a problem. Victimists are gathering information to tell you why they're so miserable. You know why this place, you know what's wrong with this place. Let me tell you what's wrong with this place. And they suck the life out of all of us. And the last one is to grow to be the person you want to be. I don't mean that physically. Some of us fell short there a long time ago. But practice the behavior you'd like to see in others. The bottom line is this: does it work for you? As an adult, does it work for you? When you think about everything you do with children, to children, does it work for you? My son, my son came home from school one day, and he was describing his teacher, talking about, one of those teachers that's always putting their names on the board. When they're misbehaving, going to put the name on the board when the child is misbehaving. Well, my son comes home, and he says, guess what, Dad? There were 20 names on the board today. I said, 20 names? How many kids in your class? 21. It doesn't take B.F. Skinner to figure out this is not working. This is not working. If you got 20 names on the board, but this teacher would do that again and again, and then would threaten the kids, we're going to put your name on the board again. But let me ask you this, guys. Does this work for you? Does this work for you? Sitting in a faculty meeting. Your principal is up there in front of you. School district. Going over this year's budget, I want to point out that we've got some... Mrs. Robinson, I saw you whispering back there. Going to put your name on the board. Mrs. Robinson, put your... Mr. Jones, I saw you passing a note back there. I'm going to put your name on the board. Mr. Jones. How would adults act if we were treated like that? I'll be damned if I'm going to take that. I'm going to my union. I am filing a complaint. We would not stand for it. But you think about how many times you have humiliated a child, as adults, that we do that to a kid. And do you think for a moment they feel closer to us? Do you think for even one iota of a moment that kid says, oh, I feel close to you now? I watched a 7th grader in a school, got in this little tussle. Teacher grabs him and says, gets him up there on the PA, on the microphone. You're going to apologize to the entire student body. Now, do you think for a minute that kid just turns around and goes, I really feel close to the adults in my life now? He hates you. You think about public humiliation. It's one of the worst things that we can do to kids. You don't want it done to you. And that's really in all the behaviors that we use with children. You don't want it done to you. So why would you do it to kids? Why would you do it to kids? Avoid raising your voice. You don't like to be yelled at. Now, there is a time we need that voice. Kids running out in front of a school bus or something, But if we've been screaming all day long, they turn it off. And this is where it's going to be, you folks working with teachers out there, that you walk past the classroom every day, and you just see that flashing of the light coming through where the window is covered up there, and they're inside the room going, will you please shut up? They're turning the lights on and off, and they're screaming at the kids. And do you think for a minute that these kids are getting better? Now, Robert Brooks said a wonderful thing. He says, now, if we were smart enough, we would throw all of the books out of all of our classrooms for the first week of school everywhere. And we would talk about nothing but how is it that we're going to create a good working environment here. One of the things he talked about is he said that there's 3 things that we need in every single classroom. 3 things we need in every single classroom to start off. What are the rules or the responsibilities of this classroom? What are the rules of this classroom? Number 2, how will we remember the rules? And number 3, what's the consequences if we break our rules? And I don't care whether you're kindergartners or high school seniors. It's all the same because we bring them and say, okay, how should we treat each other in this class to get the most done this semester? And I guarantee you, if you catch them off guard in the beginning of the year before they start to set some of the norms in the classroom, this is the norms for how I'm going to act, how I'm going to treat others, but you catch them off guard early and you say, okay, what are our responsibilities? And you have the kids generate these. I've seen high school kids generate them. Well, we will raise our hand. We're going to speak. We're going to not interrupt other people. We will not insult others. We will make sure that we're going to keep those comments to ourselves. We say, okay, we've come up with all the responsibilities. How will we remember them? What are the rules? How will we remember them? Okay, we're going to post them up here in front of the classroom. Any of you work with kids with learning disabilities, like my wife's a special education teacher. It's like you have them posted right there on the desk so that they're thinking about their answer and they go, because they have to, get their hand up before they spout out their answer. Sometimes you have to post it right there. But for the most part, where are we going to post them in the classroom? And then that way, you come October, kids are acting up, and you feel like, should I remove this kid to the classroom? You can stop the class and say, well, look, guys, we agreed on this back in the beginning of September. We agreed on it. These are responsibilities. We said, Joshua, if you're disturbing the whole class, you have to be removed. Now, unless you guys want to go back and change our rules, should we do that, guys? What do you think? Because they're your rules. And so that way, there's a wonderful saying that says, because those teachers will say, I don't have time for all that. that management, that behavior management. I don't have time for all that stuff. And he says it's a lot like the rancher who says, I don't have time to build fences. I spend the whole day chasing cows. And that's exactly what happens to ineffective teachers. Halfway through the year, they spend a whole day chasing cows. They haven't built a fence at all from the beginning. And one of the things that you can do is if we start building those fences early, we start to think about what it is that we can do. So avoid raising our voice. And one great technique that I'll give you about voice raising and those kinds of, because what kids want us to do, they want a fight. You ever thought about it? So you see a couple kids, kicking another over here underneath the desk, and so you say, and how many times have you seen this? You see this all the time, class. You grew up with this. You saw this in your own classrooms. I saw you kicking them, and then go, no, I did not. Yes, you did. I saw. Oh no, yes, you did. And you've got this fight going. They just took over the whole classroom. And what I like is Richard Lavoie says, wonderful technique. It's called the broken record technique. You tell the child what you want them to do, not what you don't want them to do. What you want them to do. And you repeat it. And you repeat it. You can get closer and closer. You can lower your voice, but you can repeat it to the child. So the kid's kicking another kid under a desk, and you say, in our classroom, we keep our hands to ourselves. I wasn't kicking. In our classroom, we will keep our hands to ourselves. I wasn't kicking. In our classroom. And you'll notice is after, he says about 80-90% of the time after 3, the child they stop. Because they know this teacher's just going to keep repeating that. We're just saying what we want, and we're repeating it. You can get closer and closer, and you'll notice, I think 80-90% of the time, kids do just stop. Now, we know those one kids that just will fight with you forever on that, and they'll just keep going because they want to see you hear you say that forever, but I think it does work. I discovered this way too late in life. My boys in high school, and they're, Dad! We want to go to a party, and we're going to be back at 3 o'clock in the morning. In our household. Going to be home at midnight because it's much safer. But, Dad, we're going to be the only ones. We have to come out. We want to stay. We're going to stay out. In our household. Going to be. But, Dad, we're going to be in our household. And after about 3, my sons would go, Dad's using that psych crap again. But, the older I've got, I think the more I know that we don't have to lose control just because they are. Dr. Judith Kuryansky says, when they have a fit, don't have one of your own. You don't have to have one of your own. And I love the broken record technique because I think it works too. It's reasonable to say we will keep our hands to ourselves. And again, telling them what we want them to do. This one, I think we should just put an asterisk next to it. Avoid sarcasm. Put an asterisk next to it because it is my pet peeve. Now, when you're goofing around and you're joking and you use sarcasm, but you also know that when it's in a relationship and somebody uses that biting comment. And one of the things I believe is about aggression is that it becomes really sneaky as we get older. When you're 3 years old and one kid smacks another kid, what do? They smack them right back. But then we get to be adults. And you get done with the meeting one day and you go, why am I so stressed out? What is it about this person that makes me just... You notice that you're around a particular relative or something. You go, what is it about this person? Nobody's raising their voice, but I'm on fire every time I'm around them because our aggression gets sneaky. We get older, we use these underhanded things like sarcasm. You ever come away from those meetings and somebody will, you throw out, this idea, say, isn't that a wonderful idea? And you come away from those and nobody's voice was ever raised, but they use those little things. They just want to get in that dig. I had a dean that I had to work with, and when she wanted something and she was upset with you, the only way she knew how to communicate was with sarcasm. So I was a department chair at the time, and she says, Steve, I want you and all the other department chairs to come in over your vacation, and I want you to advise these students. And I said, I've got other plans. It's my vacation. I'm sorry, I'm not going to make it in, and so I'm not going to come in over my vacation. Well, she was just perturbed about that. How dare me not come in over my vacation? So it's over, right? No. I'm sitting in my office with another professor. The break is over. She comes walking by. She looks and she says, oh, hello, Dr. Birchak. I didn't know you still worked here. And then she walks on down the hallway, and I'm thinking, why don't you just say what you want to say? When people treat you like, now let me just throw this back on you guys. When somebody treats you like that, what do? For the next half hour, you're going,
know what I should have said? And you think of every really good remark that you could just nail them with, well, at least one of us is working, and you come up with these remarks. And when we really take a step back from that stuff and we look at it, we go, wow, she just owned me for the last half hour. What a shame. I gave up all my personal power to this insane human being. But every moment that you spend obsessing, and I'll tell you, I think the older I've gotten to, somebody does that to me, I'm the old deer in the headlights. I'm just stunned. I don't have a response. I'm not one of those people with quick responses. I think I assume people are up to good. I think I assume people are nice. So I don't come back. I don't have those comebacks. You ever know those people, somebody attacks them, boy, they got instant comebacks. They're just ready to nail everybody. I don't have it. I don't have it in me. And as I've gotten older, I just give myself permission to be okay with that. If somebody attacks me and I didn't have the right thing to say or I couldn't come back, I give myself permission to go, Steve, that's okay. Because I would rather be that way. And to assume that people are up to good than no good. And when people attack me like that with that sarcasm, it is a stunner, but it's sneaky aggression. Think about this. When was the last time you might have been a victim of this yourself in a classroom? A teacher comes in, they're upset with you, so what do? Say, well, looks like Robert is well prepared again today. All the other kids laugh, Who wasn't laughing? Robert knows exactly what you're saying. Robert knows you're using that sarcasm just to get to him. Or rhetorical questions. How about rhetorical questions? The ones that kids can't win? They can't win. I was in a classroom and the teacher said to a kid, she says, because she was upset because the kid always forgot his stuff, his pencils, his paper. Kid had learning disability. And she says to the kid, I can't remember the kid's name, Jason, what semester is this and what grade are you in? And now all the other kids laugh because everybody knows that she's taking a poke at this kid. But the kid, learning disability, he just takes her literally. He says, second semester, 7th grade? And now what does she do? Don't you get smart with me. You threw out the stupid question. And then he answers it and you're getting fired up but that's my point too though, is if you use sarcasm, if you use rhetorical questions, it's fair game. It's fair game. And when that kid sees you in the hallway the next day, and they come walking by, looks like Miss Johnson is working hard again today. You little son of a... we're mad at them when they use it with us, but it's fair game if you use those kinds of tactics with kids. And I think part of the thing is we have to just be aware because I'll tell you, folks, it happens to all of us. My boys are in college now. They come home over the break, I walk into the kitchen, there's all the dishes, and I go, looks like I'm the only one to see all the dishes in this thing. That's my first impulse. But what do I think for a moment if I throw out that comment that they're going to go, boy, I feel close to Dad now. Let's work hard for Dad now. No, they're ticked off when I throw out that sarcasm. And it can happen to any of us. It can happen in any relationship, and we have to be careful with our aggression because the only purpose in doing something like that is we're trying to hurt somebody there. Avoid losing your temper, obviously. That's a pretty obvious one. We want to teach personal control. We got to have personal control. We got to do that with our kids. Creating a productive and warm environment is a community effort. Everybody in your building, everybody you work with deserves the same kind of respect. One building I was working with, this woman was asked about why she mistreated the secretary. Why are you mistreating the secretary and the nurse and the custodian? And she says, well, I treat the right people right. Well, who are the right people? Somebody must be getting a boatload of love at the end of the day because you're mean to everybody else all day long, but the idea is that I treat the right people right. There's a lot of people out there believing that I'll save that behavior for somebody else, just so I can pick and choose. But you know something? You'll find, and I even find in where I work here, I had a fellow professor say to me, those secretaries never do a darn thing for me. And I said, they do all kinds of things for me. Why? What's the difference? It's in how we treat people. It's in how we treat people that we get different results in it. So practice the behavior you'd like to see in others.